Hello world, I'm Johnyliltoe, and we are playing more of A Dark Secret. Who's ready for some patricide? Because we're already up in here to kill some parents, and hopefully some teachers. She seems to be obsessed with her parents, but I really hope the teachers all die too. Miserably, horrible deaths. She knew where he lived. It wasn't a secret, everyone knew where he lived. Just that, I'm guessing this is the teacher. I am happy. Great, thank you for answering me so quickly. Just that in this particular case, it would have been better for him if she didn't. After observing his house and his family's living habits for a couple of days, she knew she had seen enough. It was time to begin. It was nighttime when she felt the moment was right to begin. He lived in a casual townhouse in the center of the village, only a few streets away from the school he taught at. It was a one-floor building with, as Shiria estimated, 4 different rooms. A normal family with husband, wife, and 3 children. When she began to figure out her plan, she had been hesitant. She had felt sorry for the children, whom she had considered innocent. But then the voice inside of her had told her that she didn't have to be sorry for them. They were the same flesh and blood as their fathers. They would grow up to be like him, and were the same ever since their birth. What she did for them would be a favor. She went around the house into the garden. From here she knew nobody would be able to observe her. The darkness of the night shrouded her and protected her from unwanted spectators. To her disappointment, no window or door was open. She had hoped the family would perhaps leave one of them open for some fresh air through the night. In either case, it wasn't an issue for her. She was prepared. One of the windows on the back side of the house was weaker than the others. She took a moment to gain focus and gathered her thoughts around the magic she was about to unleash. In difference to what it had been like in the beginning, she did now not have to focus on getting enough energy to cast her spell. Instead, she now focused on releasing just enough energy to complete the task without making a sound. She created a small, red glowing aura right around the window. The noises she created within the aura seemed to disappear. The red light absorbed it in its entirety, making the place completely silent. With small effort, she pushed the window open, breaking the glass. I think you just break the glass and then push it open from the inside? Yes, anyway, the shards floated in the air before slowly dropping down towards the ground, where they arrived without making the slightest bit of noise. Still within the effect of the aura, Shiria broke the last pieces of glass out the window and jumped through the now created opening, supporting herself on the wall around the window. Inside, it was completely dark. Shiria closed her eyes. The effect of the magic within her began to emerge. Never before had she tested this, and her curiosity about whether or not it was true was unbelievably strong. She opened her eyes again, and the complete darkness had faded away, making space for a warm, red glowing atmosphere in which the room was now covered. Every detail was visible. She saw the furniture, the doorways to the other rooms, the wooden planks on the walls and the ground. So basically she has infrared vision. Looking down into a larger shard from the broken glass, she could see herself. She had changed. The once cute girl who was so friendly to everyone and kept all her pain inside of her had disappeared. Instead, she looked into the bony face of a serious woman. The thin cheeks, the dark lips, the graceful nose, and her incredibly pale skin she did not seem to even notice. Her eyes seemed to draw all the attention from her attention on them. A pair of large, wide-open eyes, looking back at her with a wildness, grim determination, and evil she would never have expected to see on herself. That was not the only thing that caught her attention. The beautiful blue color of the eyes had been replaced by the bright red of the color of fresh blood. A faint glow seemed to emerge within them, and she assumed that the red was caused by her attempt to see in complete darkness. After overcoming a slight fear of herself and what she was planning on doing, she felt calm, tranquil, just like she always feels. In an inner peace she would not have imagined in herself after realizing how desperate, rather insane, she had become. She looked into the strange image of herself, not only concentrating on what was to come, now only concentrating on what was to come. Closing her eyes, she felt the presence of 5 people. She heard their regular breathing, felt the warmth of their bodies, firmly asleep and wrapped up in a warm blanket. She turned in the direction of the smaller bodies, the more quiet breathing. It would be quick. They would not suffer, for they have not brought suffering upon another. All together sleeping in one bed, that made it easier. She did not want them to wake up. They should not be afraid. Their innocent dreams should continue in eternal sleep. She gathered her focus, collected the magic from every fiber of her body. Raising her hands towards them, she recalled would be. She recalled the words and the quiet whisper of death gaining shape as an unseen cloud of red glowing power floated across the room. There was no hesitation, no regret, as the mighty dust settled on their faces. Breathing in, they allowed the force in, welcoming it within their bodies. It was quiet, peaceful. The regular breath became slower, weaker. Shiria felt the power of life fading, and finally leaving them when they breathed out the white light of vitality with their last breath. It seemed to linger above them, confused about the early deaths of these young creatures. They knew the time for them to leave had not yet come. It was not up to them. Despite all their mourning, they had to accept it. They had to leave. And so they slowly dissolved, blowing their last unspoken disapproval towards Shiria. She smiled. They had not woken up. They had not felt pain. Her crime had been merciful. With quiet steps, she turned around and walked into the room of the dead children's parents. The reason she had to take their innocent lives in front of the couple's bed as she came to a stop. His wife caught her attention by turning to the other side and mumbling in her sleep. Was she guilty? Did she know about her husband's actions? How should she die? It wasn't a question of sparing her life or not. With all her family dead... Oh, yes, right, okay. She surely wouldn't want to live anyways. Did she deserve the same mercy her children had received, or should she die the same way her husband was doomed to? Shiria's unexpected hesitation woke the evil inside her. She had not received any mercy. There was no mercy she had to spare. With a smooth gesture, she drew the knife from her sleeve. The sharp blade reflected in the faint light from her eyes, making the entirety of the situation seem unreal. Putting her focus back on the 2 people in front of her, she decided that she did not mind whether they were awake or not. However, she would not wake them. Her task was not to wake them, but to kill them. It only took a single leap for her to reach the side of the bed on which the woman slept. Leaning over her in an inhuman bend, she could smell her blood rushing through the veins. A deep breath, one look from the person to the weapon in her hand. With one quick motion, she held down the woman's head. With the other hand, led the blade to her throat. The cold metal mixed with the warmth of blood as it dug deep into her flesh. The liquid ran down the sides of her neck, over Shiria's hand, and stained her pale skin and the sleeves of her dark clothing. No sound left the woman's mouth as she gasped for air a last time, breathing in only her own blood, and the vital light, tainted by the dark blood, creeped out her open mouth into the freedom of the universe. This time it did not linger. Shiria straightened. She could not believe that her husband had not woken up while she killed his wife. I guess they either weren't in love, or love really doesn't create an emotional bond after all. All lies. Who needs love? Slowly, she walked around the bed, in a way hoping that he would wake up. He didn't. He remained firmly asleep. She quietly laughed out. Loud. Wait, quietly. Just quietly laughed. Yes. I wish you could see this. Look at your dead wife, at your children. Again, she chuckled. There was no hesitation, no thinking when she dropped the tip of the blade on his throat and pushed. With her violently magical strength, it took her no effort to push it through his bones. In deference to his wife, he did not receive an instant death. He woke up. With widely open eyes, he stared up to her in bottomless fear and pain. His breath was a rattling noise caused by the mixture of blood and air he was breathing. Shiriya smiled. Don't worry, my dear. You do not have to fear for your life. You will die. There is nothing you can do about it. The spirit of life emerged in his throat and came towards his mouth. He breathed in and out a couple of times before his eyes went blank and his chest stopped moving. Only then the spiritual fog floated out of his body. Again, it did not linger. With an intense, insane laughter, Shiriya ran out of the house and into the darkness of the night. The people believed it was an insane person who had randomly chosen that family and killed them. Not randomly, but insane, yes. Well, that's not creepy. Okay. A few weeks later, Shiriya had prepared for her next task. She was unhappy, felt unsatisfied with what she had achieved. In her eyes, he had not suffered enough, and the death of his children bothered her. After all, she wanted to take revenge, not to take innocent lives that weren't hers to take. It upset her and made her even more crazy. Already she knew that she would not stop at killing her teacher again the next time. She had to eliminate his entire family. Her mind continuously worked on her heart, attempting to make her feel comfortable with the thought. Yet, she was not heartless enough. Yet she was not heartless, though. Yeah. She was determined to keep at her goal the next time, and not take an entire family's life, not knowing whether they were guilty or not. The teacher lived with his 2 children, and his wife in a house near the last ones. Again, near the school. Knowing the area like that's... that song. Knowing the area like her, she had no problems finding a good spot for observation, neither to find out the easiest way to attempt her unseen crimes. Soon she was ready. Her magic had gotten even more powerful, and her determination was unique. Like the last time, she waited for nightfall and entered the house with the same tactic through a window in the backside. Inside it was warm, which made her feel uncomfortable. Her mansion was always cold, and she appreciated that. The magic inside of her streamed through her body with unequal warmth, and the comfort of coldness around her was needed to keep her calm. Not having this comfort made her nervous. She closed her eyes for a moment to gain sight of in the darkness all around and felt the comforting feeling of cool around her eyes, where the magic was unleashed. This made her feel better. She breathed in and could, after her last task's experiences, smell the blood in her veins of the people inside the house. The difference between the children's blood and that of their parents was remarkably different. It was no issue for her to determine where she had to go. She left the children and went straight to their parents' bedroom. This time she would not kill anyone who was not guilty. Standing in front of the beds of the teacher and his wife, she focused straight on him. ignoring his wife completely. She stared at him and focused on unleashing the deadly power only towards him. A dark red aura merged around the man. It opened his mouth and filled it. He woke up, unable to make a sound. His eyes laid the same fear she had previously seen in the last teacher's face. It gave her satisfaction. She smiled at him, and as she raised her hand, forming a fist. The fog around his body tightened. The man grasped silently when the pain began. The more she formed a fist with her hand, the tighter the fog closed around the man's body. As slowly as she could without pausing, she closed it. The dust around his body became one, melting together into an together to form an impenetrable wall around him. As she was closing her fist firmly, the fog around him did the same. It pressed the sides of her body together, effortlessly squashing his bones into a different shape. As his bones broke, his skin burst open. Blood and intestines violently pressed out of his modified body, splashed around the room. They hit the walls, some of the furniture, Shiria and his wife. She awoke, wearily blinking in the direction of her husband. Seeing the squashed mass that was once her husband, she was suddenly wide awake. Shiria waited patiently and calmly, giving herself time to think about how to handle the upcoming situation and problem. Oops. She waited, and wanted to just disappear back through the window before she would be discovered. Despite the darkness that was all around, she knew that shapes could be vaguely noticed by anyone, and she could not risk being seen. Then she realized that the woman's next intent would be to scream. She had not expected that, neither did she know how to handle that. The scream would wake up her children, and she could not let that happen. With a single reaction, she pulled her knife out of her belt and threw it. With the help of her magic, it hit its target full force. Her magic led the knife directly through her throat, made it cut the ties that kept her head on her neck, and returned to its owner. As the woman's head slowly trembled and began to fall off the side of the stump of her neck, Shiria was already on her way back out the window to leave the place of horror. With an insane scream, Shiria ran out of the house and into the darkness of the night. The people believed it was a murderer hired to kill the two of them, since the children were still alive. Another day, another task ahead. However, we're going to leave that for next time. Yeah, this is really dark. Yeah, I'm gonna call it here. Thank you for watching. I have been your host, Johnyliltoe. Any questions, concerns, queries, comments, all that stuff, put them down in the comment section below, and I will see you next time.